Last week, the man you saw there, that's Democratic Congressman Lloyd Doggett of Texas, warned his colleagues about the danger of passing H.R. 9495. That is the Stop Terror Financing and Tax Penalties on American Hostages Act. Now, one of its purposes, as you see in the second part of that name, is to provide tax relief to Americans held hostage abroad. Seems like a good idea. But it would also give the U.S. Treasury unilateral authority to strip tax-exempt status from nonprofits, which would essentially kill them off, that were deemed terrorist-supporting organizations by the administration or, in just a few short months, the Trump administration, which will be running the Treasury Department. That would put over 100 organizations like the ACLU and the Brenner Center for Justice, even Planned Parenthood, at risk. Now, the bill was blocked last week, falling short of the 270 votes needed to pass, but 52 Democrats have voted for it. And now the bill is heading back to the floor. If it passes this time, it would have terrible consequences. As Democratic Senator Chris Murphy warns, a frequent tool of dictators is to label political opposition groups as terrorist groups and shut them down. This bill would give Trump the power to do just that. It's disastrous. The vote is slated for this week. And if you want to let your congressperson know your thoughts about how they should vote on it, call the House switchboard at 202-224-3121. An operator will connect you with your representative. And joining me now is Democratic Congressman Lloyd Doggett from Texas. He's a member of the House Ways and Means Committee, the Budget Committee, and the Congressional Joint Committee on Taxation. Congressman, I'm struggling a little bit with this legislation because it strikes me as it's probably already illegal under U.S. law to, materially support terrorism. And so that has to already be illegal. Well, what's the purpose of the law?
Well, Chris, thank you. I think you summarized it very well. The purpose of the law is to empower a wannabe tyrant with the weapons of tyranny. And if Donald Trump is permitted to be judge, jury, and executioner over any nonprofit in America that makes his enemies list, whether it's a hospital or Planned Parenthood performing an abortion, a group that is helping immigrants, eco-terrorists, as some have mislabeled some environmental activists, are just people that don't hum MAGA enough, he has the power to basically invalidate their nonprofit status, scare off their donors, and really do the same kind of thing that, as you mentioned, my friend Chris Murphy said, the dictators, the tyrants that Trump admires all over the world, they have squashed civic society in order to prevent any kind of alternative voice. Even the news media, so many of our news media outlets now are nonprofit entities, certainly down in Texas where I'm from, but major nonprofit organizations, and that's why the Freedom of the Press Foundation has gotten involved in this. And we're now up, in fact, actually to about 160 nonprofits that are calling on their members of Congress to not give this power to Donald Trump.
I want to read from Claudia Tenney, who's one of the co-sponsors of the bill, just because I feel like I should introduce what she says about her bill and have you respond to it.
Sure.
She starts about the tax penalties, but this is from a few posts. She says, my bill is straightforward. Tax-exempt nonprofits should not fund terrorist groups. It's extremely alarming some House Democrats voted against this bill defending organizations that support terrorists, some of which are holding Americans hostage. What do you say to that?
Well, we're all against terrorism, and we're all for giving support for hostages so that they don't pay any tax penalty. This bill is not about terrorism. It's about giving Donald Trump unlimited authority to label his political opponents as terrorists and thereby deny their nonprofit status. I think the law is already perfectly adequate to deal with terrorism, and the Justice Department has in fact prosecuted some people for funding terrorism in the past and has stopped some of that funding in the past. It was clear in the course of the debate that the complaint was that the IRS had not moved swiftly enough concerning some of the letters the chairman had sent out to them. And he's trying to, litigate the tragedy in Gaza and the Middle East. This is about much more than that.
Yeah, one of the things this might be wonky and processy, but it's worth getting into the weeds here. My understanding, and I just reread the bill text today, is that, first of all, I don't think this is constitutional, but who knows with the Supreme Court. So let's just put that aside. It empowers the Secretary of the Treasury to simply deem, that's the full process here, that the Secretary of the Treasury just deems
right.
it organization. Like, that's it. Like, the process is this cabinet secretary says, you, Planned Parenthood, you're done because you're supporting terrorism.
Exactly. As some of Trump's extremist supporters claim Planned Parenthood, as important and valuable as it is, they claim it's a terrorist organization. And you mentioned the Secretary of Treasury. That's how he does it. But we're seeing with these outrageous Trump appointments that you've been focusing on in your program that this will really be Donald Trump personally. All he does is pick up the phone and say, I've had enough of Planned Parenthood. I've had enough of the Sierra Club. I've had enough of this hospital that's performing abortions. Declare that they're a terrorist. They don't have to provide the reasons. They don't have to provide the evidence. They don't have to provide a meaningful hearing, and they're gone. And that's why I think there's such a clamor about this from civic society across America, and why, as I've talked with colleagues, many of them today, the vote was taken last week, really, as they were just about getting off the plane following the election, and many of these people are switching. But we do need the calls to our colleagues to ensure that come Thursday morning, when this bill is up, that we have a united Democratic front against it.
Now, there is the first time the vote came up, I believe it was done on what's called suspension of the rules, which is a way of fast-tracking a floor vote that has a higher threshold. I think it's 2/3, right?
Right, and that's how we were able to stop it last week.
So are they going to bring it up on suspension again?
No, this is under a majority. It's under what's called a rule that you're familiar with.
Right.
So we'll have an hour of debate on Thursday morning, and a majority will determine this. To those people who say, well, the Senate will work out everything, I think it's very important that we have a substantial vote in the House. The danger here is not just capital punishment on nonprofits across America, but the intimidation fact. That if Trump indicates if you don't do this, your nonprofit status will be invalidated, and that can have a very pernicious effect. So I think we have a chance of slowing it down, not being just a speed bump on the way to an authoritarian government. And we have to, at every opportunity, when Trump is overreaching, we have to push back and not just be a yield right-of-way for his erroneous endeavors.
Congressman Lloyd Doggett, thank you, sir. Appreciate it.